Every single day, we put our trust in this invisible shield. We drive over massive bridges, we work in soaring skyscrapers, we ride trains through tunnels, and we honestly don't give it a second thought. But what exactly is this complex system that keeps our world from, well, falling apart? And what happens when that shield cracks? Let's take a look. It's a pretty fundamental question, isn't it? And the stakes are, quite literally, life and death. The answer, as you might guess, isn't just about pouring stronger concrete or using thicker steel. It's a really complex, constantly evolving system of safety management. And as we're about to see, when any part of that system fails, the results can be absolutely catastrophic. I mean, just think about the I-35W bridge collapse back in 2007. It was such a wake-up call, a horrifying reminder that the infrastructure we rely on is vulnerable. Events like this really hammer home a fundamental truth. You have to spot the problems before they turn into disasters. Early detection is everything. So how do we actually do that? Well, it all boils down to this really core three-step process. First, you have to identify the hazard. That's the thing that could cause harm. Next, you assess the risk, which is basically figuring out the chances of that harm actually happening. And finally, you control the threats by putting safeguards in place. This simple framework, identify, assess, control, it's the bedrock for everything we're about to talk about. All right, so let's start with the big stuff, the structures themselves. This is a constant, ongoing battle against all the forces of nature and time that are trying to tear our world down. And the enemies in this battle, they are relentless. You've got the slow, creeping threats like aging and corrosion, rust literally eating things away. Then you have the sudden, violent shocks from extreme weather or earthquakes. And of course, you have those tiny, almost invisible cracks that can grow and grow until they lead to a total failure. So our primary defense in this fight is something called structural health monitoring, or SHM for short. The best way to think about it is like a nervous system for a bridge or a building. It's a whole network of sensors that are constantly checking the structure's pulse, listening for the tiniest signs of trouble 24/7. And as you can see here, SHM isn't just looking for one big, obvious problem. It's designed to catch a whole range of sneaky issues, things like water seeping through a dam, a tunnel bending under pressure, or even just the unseen danger of too much heavy snow piling up on a roof. It's the early warning system for all of it. But here's the thing. Keeping the concrete and steel standing, that's really only half the story. Because behind every single one of these structures are the people, the human beings who build them and maintain them. And protecting them, well, that requires a completely different playbook. Now, this is really interesting. You might think the most common dangers on a construction site are the big, dramatic ones. But it turns out, more often than not, it's the repetitive strain, the constant heavy lifting, and just poor ergonomics that lead to the most injuries over time. Of course, that doesn't mean those sudden dangers aren't real. They absolutely are. Falls from high places, being hit by falling objects, electrical hazards, these are all huge risks. And that's where dedicated occupational health and safety, or OHS, systems come in. Their entire job is to prevent these things from happening. So how do you manage all these different risks? Well, there's a really smart strategy called the hierarchy of controls. The absolute best thing you can do is just eliminate the hazard completely. Design it out of the job from the start. If you can't do that, you use engineering solutions like installing guardrails. After that comes training. And notice what's at the very bottom of the list? PPE. Your hard hat and gloves are your last line of defense, not your first. Okay, so we've covered monitoring structures and protecting people from risks that are already there. But the whole game is changing. What if we could get ahead of the danger? What if we could actually predict it before it ever happens? And that question, that's what brings us to the most profound shift happening in safety right now. We're talking about the rise of digital guardians and the move from being reactive to being truly predictive. And it's all thanks to technology. This slide just lays out the difference so clearly. On the left, you've got the old way. Somebody with a clipboard shows up for a scheduled inspection, or even worse, you wait for something to actually break before you fix it. But on the right, that's the new way. A constant, live stream of data being analyzed by AI that can predict a failure is coming and send out an alert right now. It's a total game changer. And look, this isn't some far-off science fiction. This is the toolkit being used today. We've got AI systems, these things called deep neural networks that can watch camera feeds and recognize a hazard in real time. We have digital boundaries, called geofencing, that can automatically shut down heavy machinery if a worker strays too close. It's a whole new world of safety. Okay, so the big question is, does all this fancy tech actually make a difference? Is it just cool gadgets, or does it really make people safer? Well, the research gives us a very, very clear answer, and the data is pretty striking. And here it is. This chart makes the connection impossible to ignore. On the left, you see projects that didn't use much of this digital tech, and they had a higher rate of accidents. But on the right, for projects that went all in on digital adoption, you see a clear, dramatic drop in incidents. The evidence is just compelling. Technology is making our world tangibly safer. So when you take a step back and put all these pieces together, what does it all mean? Well, what we have is basically a blueprint for a much, much safer future. The future of safety is this integrated system. You have the physical structures, right? They're being watched 24/7 by SHM. Then you have the people on site, and they're being shielded by smart OHS rules. And then, layered over everything, is technology. It's the intelligent glue, the AI and the data, that connects it all, predicts risks for both people and structures, and acts as the ultimate digital guardian. So if there's one big idea to take away from all this, it's this. Safety is no longer just about following a checklist. It has evolved into a smart, predictive, data-driven science. We're moving from a world of hard hats and clipboards to a world of sensors and algorithms. This evolution is incredible, but it does leave us with one last, really important question to chew on. As our infrastructure gets smarter and more connected, what new challenges, what new threats is that invisible shield going to face? Because the next great safety challenge might not be about reinforcing concrete, but about securing the code that protects it all.